All right, everyone, get ready because today we're going to really dig into this whole idea of unshakable optimism.
Unshakable optimism.
We've got a ton of great insights from the Peak Flow YouTube channel, and I got to say, I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about, looking on the bright side, but what does it really take to actually build a mindset that not only helps you get through tough times, but actually allows you to thrive because of them?
You hit the nail on the head. That's the big question, isn't it? And Peak Flow, they go beyond just the surface level, good vibes only kind of stuff.
Right.
What we're really diving into today is how positivity, when you understand it as a skill, as something you can develop, becomes like this seriously powerful tool for navigating all the craziness that life throws at us.
Okay, so we're talking less about that, toxic positivity.
Exactly.
And more about actual strategies you can use.
Yeah.
I like that. But where do we even begin with this whole unshakable optimism thing?
Well, Peak Flow, they really dig into the science behind all of this. And one of the things that really stood out to me is how it affects our ability to solve problems, effectively. They actually argue that optimism isn't about ignoring the negative stuff. It's about approaching it with a mindset that's ready for solutions.
Oh, okay. So it's more about how we view challenges themselves, not just trying to put a positive spin on things.
Exactly. It's about building that sense of agency, that feeling that you've got the resources and the ability to deal with whatever comes your way.
I see.
So, for example, instead of getting totally bogged down by a problem, an optimist might be like, okay, what are the possible solutions here? What resources do I have? And what's that very first step I can take?
That's interesting. It almost sounds like optimism in this sense is less about just your emotions and more about problem solving. Like it's a way of approaching problems.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Peak Flow actually argues that this optimistic way of solving problems is what really separates the people who kind of fall apart under pressure from the people who actually rise to the occasion.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this goes way beyond just, feeling good.
Right.
It's more about giving yourself the tools to handle whatever life throws your way, which I like.
Exactly.
But honestly, there are days where it feels like there's just so much negativity coming at you from all sides.
Oh, for sure.
That it's hard to even know where to start with reframing things. Is there actually a way to train your brain to be more optimistic?
Absolutely. There is Peak Flow, they suggest, starting with something that seems almost too simple, a gratitude journal.
A gratitude journal.
Yeah, I know, right? It sounds so basic, but the act of regularly taking the time to focus on what you're grateful for can actually rewire your brain to notice the positive more.
So it's like building a mental muscle for spotting the good even when things are tough.
Exactly. You got it. Think about it. Our brains are kind of hardwired to look for threats and potential problems.
Yeah.
It's a leftover from, our caveman days.
Right.
But when we make a conscious effort to direct our attention to the good things, we can actually counteract that negativity bias.
I can see how that can make a difference over time. It's like training your brain to see that glass half full instead of half empty.
It's funny you say that because that's exactly the analogy they use.
Oh, wow. Great minds. Right.
Exactly. They suggest making this a daily habit, like taking a few minutes every morning or every evening, just to jot down 3 things that you're grateful for.
Okay.
It could be absolutely anything, from a beautiful sunset to a random act of kindness from a stranger. The important thing is to do it consistently.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, does Peak Flow get into the science behind why this actually works?
Yeah.
Because it seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Kind of.
That simply writing down good things could have such a big impact.
They do. Research actually shows that gratitude journaling can actually lower your stress hormones, improve your sleep quality, and even boost your immune system.
Wow, wait, so there are actual physical benefits to this.
There are.
That makes it even more interesting.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it even goes deeper than that. Gratitude journaling can also increase feelings of happiness and contentment, which makes us more resilient in the face of challenges.
Okay, now that's starting to sound like the foundation for that unshakable optimism we were talking about.
Right.
It's like this one simple practice has ripple effects that touch on pretty much every part of our well-being, both mental and physical.
I completely agree. And building on this foundation of gratitude, Peak Flow, they introduce another powerful tool for shifting our mindset, and that's reframing negative thoughts.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because, we all have that inner critic, that voice that tells us we're not good enough, or smart enough or capable enough.
Oh, yeah.
How do we actually start to challenge those thoughts?
Well, it all starts with becoming aware of those negative thought patterns and then consciously choosing to reframe them. So, for example, let's say you're facing a tough task and your first thought is, ugh, I can't do this.
Right. Classic.
Peak flow would suggest challenging that thought with a question like, what evidence do I actually have to support that belief?
Okay, so instead of just accepting those negative thoughts as the truth, we're questioning whether they're even valid.
Exactly. And often, when we really take a closer look at those thoughts, we realize they're based on fear, past experiences, or limiting beliefs, not on actual facts.
Makes sense. It's like we're taking back control of the story instead of letting that inner critic run the show.
Exactly. And Peak Flow, they offer this really helpful framework for reframing these negative thoughts. They call it the AAA approach.
AAA. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so the first A stands for acknowledge. You acknowledge the negative thought without judgment.
Okay.
You don't try to push it away or pretend it isn't there. You just observe it.
Gotcha. So we're not suppressing the thought. We're just acknowledging that it's there. What's the next A?
The second A is assess. This is where you really examine the thought. Ask yourself, is this thought even true? What evidence do I have to back it up? Is it helpful or harmful?
That would force you to really think critically about whether those negative thoughts are even valid?
Exactly.
Okay. And what about that final A?
The final A is adjust. This is where you make a conscious choice to reframe the thought.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I can't do this, you might say, this is going to be tough, but I'm capable of figuring it out. Or, I've overcome challenges before and I can do it again.
It's like turning that negative self-talk into a pep talk, right?
Exactly. You're shifting your focus from what you're afraid of to what you're actually capable of achieving. And it's a skill. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it gets.
This is starting to feel really empowering. Like we're taking back control of our thoughts.
Yes.
And choosing to focus on what's possible instead of getting stuck in those limitations.
Absolutely.
What's next on our deep dive into Unshakable Optimism? Because I'm ready for more.
Well, Peak Flow takes this whole idea of reframing even further by looking at the power of self-talk.
Self-talk.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really fascinating because it digs into how the way we talk to ourselves can actually build us up or tear us down.
I'm all ears. Because I think we can all relate to that inner voice that can sometimes be a little harsh, let's say.
Yeah, it can be brutal.
Yeah.
And Peak Flow, they make this argument that this inner dialogue is just as important, maybe even more important, than the conversations we have with other people. It's like this constant narrative running in the background of our minds, shaping our beliefs, our emotions, and our actions.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're constantly being bombarded with negative self-talk, it's got to be hard to stay positive about anything, right?
Right, exactly. They use this brilliant analogy to illustrate the point.
Okay.
They ask you to imagine having a friend who's constantly criticizing you, putting you down, always focusing on your flaws. How would that make you feel?
Oh, it'd be terrible. I'd probably avoid that friend like the plague.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. A lot of us do that exact same thing to ourselves all the time through negative self-talk. We beat ourselves up over mistakes, dwell on our shortcomings, and doubt our abilities. And it's incredibly destructive.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It really highlights how damaging negative self-talk can be. So how do we start being better friends to ourselves?
Yeah.
What does positive self-talk actually look like in practice?
Well, Peak Flow suggests starting with a simple shift in the language you use.
Okay.
Instead of constantly criticizing yourself, try replacing that negative chatter with words of encouragement.
Oh.
For example, right? Instead of saying, ooh, I'm so stupid, I messed that up again.
Yeah.
Try saying something like, I'm learning and growing. Everyone makes mistakes. It's all about treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion you'd offer a friend.
That's a great tip. It seems so simple, but I can see how powerful that could be. It's like giving yourself a pep talk instead of a put down.
Exactly. And another important part of positive self-talk is focusing on your strengths. Instead of dwelling on what you see as your weaknesses, remind yourself of what you're good at, your talents, your skills, your accomplishments.
Right.
Recognizing and celebrating your strengths can really boost your confidence and help you approach challenges with a more optimistic outlook.
I love that. It's like making a conscious choice to focus on what empowers you, not what makes you feel bad about yourself.
Exactly. And it all ties back to that whole idea of building unshakable optimism.
Right.
When you work on having a positive inner dialogue, you're creating this foundation of self-belief and resilience that can help you get through pretty much anything.
I'm really starting to see how all these pieces fit together. You know, it's like we're building this mental toolkit for positivity.
Yes.
Starting with gratitude, adding those reframing techniques, and now bringing in positive self-talk. It's a pretty powerful combination.
It is. It really is. And peak flow doesn't just stop at theory. They actually bring these concepts to life with some incredible real-world examples of people who've managed to stay positive in the face of some seriously difficult circumstances.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, because it's one thing to talk about these techniques in the abstract, but seeing them play out in real life, that's what makes it truly inspiring. Who do they highlight?
Well, one story that really stuck with me was that of Nick Vujicic.
Nick Vujicic, born without arms or legs.
Exactly.
I remember seeing a video of him speaking years ago. His resilience is just mind-blowing.
It really is. And peak flow, they go beyond just telling his story.
Okay.
They analyze his language, his attitude, the specific strategies he uses to not only overcome adversity, but to inspire millions of people around the world.
So what are some of the key takeaways they highlight from Nick's story? What makes his approach to optimism so unique and effective?
Well, one of the things they emphasize is Nick's amazing ability to reframe what most people would see as limitations into opportunities. Instead of focusing on what he couldn't do, he chose to focus on what he could do. And he did it all with this incredible sense of humor, humility, and this genuine desire to connect with others.
So it's not just about putting a positive spin on things. It's about actively searching for those opportunities, for growth and connection, even when you're facing huge challenges.
That's exactly it. Nick's story shows us that optimism isn't about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about choosing to see the possibilities even within those challenges.
I like that.
And the impact he's had on the world speaks volumes about the power of that perspective.
I'm starting to see how unshakable optimism is about so much more than just, feeling good.
Right.
It's about building a mindset that gives you the power to face challenges head on.
Right.
Find creative solutions.
Right.
And ultimately live more meaningful life that makes a real impact.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And Nick Vujicic's story is just one of many powerful examples that Peak Flow explores.
Okay.
They also dive into the incredible journey of Malala Yousafzai.
Now that's a story of true courage and resilience. To advocate for girls' education, even after being targeted by the Taliban.
Right.
That's next level optimism.
It really is. And Peak Flow, they highlight how Malala's unwavering belief in her cause, even when facing unimaginable danger, is a testament to how optimism can fuel meaningful action in the world.
I can't wait to hear more about how Peak Flow unpacks her story.
Yeah.
And what lessons we can all learn from her remarkable journey.
I think you'll find it incredibly inspiring.
Well, I'm definitely hooked. This deep dive is already blowing my mind.
I'm glad to hear it. And we've only just scratched the surface of what Peak Flow has to offer. There's so much more to explore.
I'm ready for it. Let's keep diving.
Picking up where we left off with Malala's story, Peak Flow really dives into how her optimism is connected to her sense of purpose, like her mission.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you believe that strongly in something, it's got to give you a whole other level of resilience. Did Peak Flow talk about any specific tactics that Malala uses to stay positive?
Yeah, they point out her ability to focus on the bigger picture even when she was in incredible danger. Instead of getting stuck in fear or anger, she takes all that energy and channels it into this vision of a world where girls everywhere have equal access to education.
So it's almost like, for her, optimism isn't just a feeling, it's a deliberate choice.
Right.
That keeps her moving towards her goals.
Exactly. Peak Flow argues that this kind of purpose-driven optimism, that's like the antidote to despair, It's about seeing the potential for good even in the darkest situations and using that vision to fuel action.
Wow, that's really hitting home.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of our own negativity comes from feeling lost or like we don't have direction. Maybe finding that sense of purpose is a key ingredient in building unshakable optimism.
That's a great point, and actually Peak Flow touches on that too. They suggest that figuring out your core values, the things that are really important to you, and then making sure your actions line up with those values, that can be a huge source of both motivation and optimism.
Okay, I'm adding Find My Purpose to my to-do list right now. But in the meantime, is there anything else we can do to cultivate that Malala-level resilience? Besides facing down the Taliban, obviously.
Thankfully, yes. Peak Flow offers a bunch of practical tips, and one I find particularly helpful is the idea of creating a positivity toolkit.
A positivity toolkit. Okay, what's that?
Basically a collection of strategies that you can turn to whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or discouraged.
I like that. It's like a mental first aid kit for negativity.
Exactly. It can be anything that helps you shift your mindset or just lifts your mood.
Okay.
Peak Flow suggests things like listening to upbeat music, spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness, or connecting with loved ones.
So it's about having a go-to list of activities that you know will make you feel better and help you see things more clearly.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, it's super personal.
Yeah.
What works for one person might not work for another. The key is to try things out and figure out what really resonates with you.
I'm already brainstorming my own positivity toolkit. This is great. But I gotta be honest, sometimes it feels like life throws so many curveballs that even the most carefully curated toolkit might not be enough.
Right.
Does Peak Flow talk about those times when it seems like everything's going wrong?
They do, and one of their most powerful suggestions is to reframe how you think about failure.
Reframing failure.
Yeah, instead of seeing setbacks as proof that you're not good enough, they encourage us to view them as valuable learning experiences.
Okay, that's a classic reframing technique, but I'm curious to hear how Peak Flow puts their own spin on it. What makes their approach unique?
Well, they introduce this idea of embracing what they call productive failure. It's about understanding that failure is just a natural part of growing and learning, and that it's often through our mistakes that we learn the most important lessons.
So it's about shifting from I messed up to what can I learn from this?
Exactly. Peak Flow suggests asking yourself things like, okay, what went wrong? What could I have done differently? What new knowledge or skills can I gain from this experience?
So basically turning every setback into a chance to improve and evolve.
That's it. And by embracing this growth mindset, Peak Flow argues, we can actually transform failure from something we're afraid of into a springboard for progress and innovation.
That's such a powerful way to reframe things. I can see how that would make a huge difference in how we approach challenges and setbacks.
It really can. And they go even further. They suggest we should actually celebrate our failure.
Wait, did you say celebrate? Like throw a party for our mistakes?
Haha, not quite a party. But the idea is to acknowledge and appreciate the role that failure plays in our growth. They suggest keeping a failure journal where you write down your mistakes, what you learned from them, and how you plan to use those lessons in the future.
Okay, I've got to admit, that's a new one for me. But I can see how it would help you change the way you think about failure and make it less scary.
Exactly. And by normalizing failure, we can free ourselves from that fear of messing up, which is often what keeps us from taking risks and going after our goals.
This whole idea of productive failure is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's like Peak Flow is giving us permission to embrace the messiness of life.
Right.
And see every setback as an opportunity for growth.
Totally. And it's this kind of radical reframing that really sets Peak Flow apart. They're not just giving us feel-good platitudes.
Right.
They're providing real, practical strategies for developing a mindset that can handle anything.
And I'm feeling more and more equipped to build my own unshakable optimism with every insight we uncover.
That's great to hear. And there's still more to come.
Oh, good.
Peak Flow has some fascinating things to say about how our physical well-being can actually shape our mental outlook.
Oh, I'm definitely interested in that. Because I know when I'm feeling sluggish or run down, it's way harder to stay positive.
Exactly. Peak Flow dives into this mind-body connection, and it's a reminder that our physical health and our mental well-being are totally intertwined. They argue that taking care of our bodies is crucial for building a positive mindset.
Okay, so we're talking the basics like exercise, sleep, and nutrition. I'm guessing it goes a bit deeper than just eat your vegetables, though.
It does. It does. Peak Flow takes a more holistic approach, emphasizing things like movement, mindfulness, and even just being out in nature as ways to nourish both our bodies and minds.
Interesting. So it's not just about hitting the gym, it's about finding activities that you actually enjoy.
Right.
That help you feel more connected to your body and the world around you.
Exactly. They suggest things like yoga, hiking, dancing, even just taking a walk in the park. The key is to find something you like, and that helps you de-stress and recharge.
That makes sense. It's about prioritizing self-care and recognizing that taking care of our physical well-being is a key part of building unshakable optimism.
Exactly. And they also talk about the importance of getting enough sleep.
Oh, sleep. Yeah.
They really emphasize that not getting enough sleep can mess with our mood, our energy levels, and our ability to handle stress.
Definitely something I need to work on. I'm a total night owl.
Well, Peak Flow gives some great tips for improving sleep hygiene.
Okay.
Things like creating a relaxing bedtime routine, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed, and making sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah.
A good night's sleep does sound like a pretty good investment in my overall well-being.
It is. And it all comes back to that idea of building a strong foundation for unshakable optimism. When you're taking care of your physical health, you're giving yourself the best chance of maintaining a positive mindset, even when life gets tough.
This is all making so much sense. It feels like we're building this amazing collection of tools and strategies to handle life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
We are. And Peak Flow goes even further. They talk about how important our social connections are for staying positive.
Well, that's interesting because I know when I'm feeling isolated or lonely, it's a lot harder to be optimistic.
Exactly. Peak Flow really stresses the importance of nurturing our relationships and creating a supportive social network. They argue that strong social connections give us a sense of belonging, purpose, and resilience, which are all key for maintaining a positive outlook.
So it's not just about having tons of friends on social media, it's about building real, meaningful connections with people who support us and lift us up.
Exactly. They suggest making time for face-to-face interactions, doing things you enjoy with people you care about, and being intentional about building relationships with people who share your values and interests.
Those kinds of connections would definitely make a huge difference in how we feel overall and how well we can handle life's challenges.
Absolutely. And they can also give us a sense of perspective when we're going through rough patches. Peak Flow highlights that just talking to someone we trust about our problems can help us process our emotions, gain new insights, and just feel less alone in our struggles.
It's so true. Sometimes just having someone listen without judgment can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Peak Flow reminds us that we don't have to go through tough times alone. Reaching out for support when we need it, that's a sign of strength, not weakness.
This is all so insightful, and I'm really starting to understand that unshakable optimism is so much more than just positive thinking.
Right.
It's about building a life that supports us on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And Peak Flow brings all these elements together by emphasizing how important it is to find joy in the everyday moments.
Oh, I love that. It's easy to get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life that we forget to appreciate the little things.
Exactly. Peak Flow suggests making a conscious effort to savor those simple pleasures. A delicious meal, a beautiful sunset, a heartfelt conversation with a loved one. They argue that by developing an attitude of gratitude and appreciation for the present moment, we can boost our overall happiness and well-being.
Okay, I'm adding savor the simple pleasures to my positivity toolkit. It's a great reminder that happiness isn't always about achieving huge goals or getting material things.
Right.
It's often in those everyday moments that we tend to overlook.
Exactly. And by training ourselves to notice and appreciate those moments, we can build a more positive outlook on life, even when things are tough.
This entire deep dive has been so incredibly insightful. I feel like I'm getting this whole new understanding of what it means to cultivate unshakable optimism.
Right.
It's not about pretending that everything's perfect. It's about building that foundation of resilience, resourcefulness, and gratitude that helps us navigate life's ups and downs with grace and hope.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think Peak Flow has one more powerful idea to share that brings everything together.
Okay, I'm listening. What is it?
They talk about the power of choosing your perspective.
You know, it feels like that's been a recurring theme throughout our conversation.
It has, hasn't it?
What do they mean by that?
It's about recognizing that you always have a choice in how you look at any situation. You can choose to see the negative, focus on the problems, dwell on the challenges, or you can choose to see the positive, look for opportunities, and focus on solutions.
It's like that saying, is the glass half empty or half full?
Exactly. And Peak Flow, they emphasize just how powerful this choice of perspective is. It shapes your thoughts, your feelings, and in the end, your actions.
It makes sense. If you're constantly focusing on the negative, it's going to be tough to stay optimistic and motivated.
Right.
But if you can train yourself to see the good, even in difficult situations, you're much more likely to keep that positive outlook.
You got it. It's all about making a conscious decision to focus on the things that empower you, inspire you, and move you forward.
This is so inspiring. This whole deep dive is giving me a whole new way of thinking about life's challenges.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, it's a practice. Some days, it'll be easier to maintain that positive perspective than others, but The more you consciously choose to focus on the good, the more natural it will become.
I love that reminder. It's not about being perfect. It's about making that effort to shift your mindset one thought at a time. And speaking of inspiring thoughts, I keep thinking back to the stories of Mika Vujicic and Malala Yousafzai.
Yes.
Their resilience and determination are such incredible examples of what's possible when you choose to approach life with unshakable optimism.
They are truly remarkable people, and their stories remind us that no matter what challenges we face, we all have the ability to choose hope, to choose courage, and to choose to make a positive impact on the world.
That's such a beautiful thought. It really captures the heart of what we've been exploring today.
It does, and I think it leads perfectly into the final thought-provoking question that Peak Flow leaves us with.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
What is it?
They ask, if Nick and Malala could overcome such incredible adversity, what's one challenge in your life that you can approach with renewed optimism and determination?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it? It's a challenge to tap into our own inner strength and to really believe in our ability to overcome obstacles and reach our goals.
I'm definitely going to be reflecting on that question long after this deep dive is over. It reminds us that we all have the potential to make a difference, both in our own lives and in the world.
Absolutely. And that's a powerful message to hold on to as we navigate the complexities of life.
Well, I feel like we've covered so much ground today. I'm so thankful for this deep dive into the world of unshakable optimism.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring all of this with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey into the power of positivity. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and practical tools to help you face life challenges with more resilience and hope.
Yeah, that's a really powerful question to end on. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in our own little struggles and forget about the bigger picture. It really is. And thinking about those stories, it makes me realize that both Nick and Malala, they chose to put their energy into something bigger than themselves. Nick with inspiring others, and Malala with fighting for this cause she believes in so deeply. That sense of purpose, it can be such powerful fuel for optimism.
Yeah, it's like their challenges actually became a springboard for something even greater.
Right.
I'm starting to see how positivity isn't just about being happy yourself.
Yeah.
It can be a force for real change in the world.
Exactly. When you approach challenges with that positive mindset, it opens up possibilities you might not have even considered before.
Right.
You start to see solutions instead of roadblocks, opportunities instead of limitations.
Yeah, it's like that shift in perspective we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
It can totally change how you approach a situation and what you're able to accomplish.
Absolutely. And remember, optimism can be contagious. When you choose to approach life with a positive attitude, it inspires the people around you to do the same. It's like a ripple effect that can create a more positive and hopeful world.
That's a beautiful thought. It reminds us that even our individual choices can have a collective impact.
Yeah.
We're not just building a better life for ourselves, but we're also contributing to a better world for everyone.
That's a really empowering idea. It reminds us that even small acts of kindness, courage, and optimism can make a real difference.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained this completely new understanding of what it truly means to cultivate unshakable optimism.
Me too. It's been great exploring these ideas with you.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh yeah, just a quick reminder to everyone to check out the Peak Flow YouTube channel for more great content on positivity and personal growth.
Okay.
They have a ton of valuable information that can help you keep going on this journey towards cultivating unshakable optimism.
That's a great suggestion. I'm definitely going to be checking out more of their videos. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the power of positivity. We hope you've learned some valuable insights and practical tools to help you face life challenges with more resilience and hope. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep.